Yeah,
It was.
Honestly, you could do that.
I gave myself a year last week. Yeah, but I wanted to grow more. I gave myself a haircut like with more layers. So there's longer, there's longer. Like up to here. And then I also get like my bangs shorter. So my haircut
Are you sure?
Oh, you are. I don't know the guy plus things that come out.
I was like, oh, good.
Yeah, follow that sheet. No, I think this is mostly for your.
Oh my god.
Which is that?
I didn't even realize that was an option until just now.
Oh my god, now you make me nervous.
Now I'm just having a good
Can you
time.
have it on like a sequence to make it more immersive for
I
like?
know,
Like a live stream.
Did I slip away in the class?
I mean, we can certainly try that.
Take someone with the camera up.
My goal here is to make sure that the online folks feel included, so yes, let's hang on. You got this? Camera control.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start on this side of the classroom and we'll just do a wave. Go. Alright, that was really there we go, okay. Now everyone online can feel like they were included. Alright. Back to regularly scheduled programming. Ladies and gentlemen, it is officially below 90 in the forecast, although I think we are right at 91 degrees as of this moment. But this morning when I checked, it was below 91 degrees. So it is officially and quantifiably cold in Arizona. Hence why we are now wearing a jacket to class. All right, we've got lots to cover today, but I hope to get us out of here just early. Maybe we can start fall break just a touch early. For whatever fall break is worth with 4 days, including the weekend. I want to spend a little bit of time going over InDesign with a little bit of greater detail. So that said, let's do that if I can figure out how to share my screen. 1 second. All right. Alright, the online folks, you guys can see that?
Sure. That was very wrong.
When you think you figured it out, Nothing wants to.
So this is what you say.
All right, there we go. Now we're cooking with gas. So, who's already messed around with InDesign a little bit?
I tried, but I was struggling with it.
Well, what exactly were you struggling with?
I was trying to make the poster because I was trying to stay ahead of the work.
Cool.
I tried to place the poster inside and try to copy trace it, but
Okay.
it was just not. There was no layer. I'm there.
Yeah. Okay. So layers.
Even though it's there, I see it now. But
Layers. You might have. InDesign is probably one of the more customizable softwares that Adobe has. Although all of them are customizable, this one, for whatever reason, likes to hide a bunch of it. So my recommendation are, if you're ever looking for something and you're not able to find it within InDesign, always go to the Window tab. Window tab up here gives you a lot of options. And frankly, I use InDesign so little now, there's actually more things now than there's ever been. So InDesign is really great for publishing. I actually have a project with my 450 class right now where we're gonna be doing nothing but InDesign. But that said, if you're doing anything other than like a multi-page book, chances are Illustrator might be a better option there. So I can't imagine most of you guys spending too much time in Illustrator, but I still think it's worth your time knowing what it is, because it's a huge preface. Some of the things that you guys will ultimately end up doing in Figma, the predecessor to that was InDesign. And the way that we can think about it is that InDesign is a print publishing tool and Figma is a digital publishing tool, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do in InDesign that I want you guys to be privy to, because a lot of them are similar in Figma, just maybe a slightly different name. So that said, you mentioned that you were looking for layers. If your layers for whatever reason are missing or not there, come down here and just select layers and it'll perk up for you. Let me turn a couple of things off here. Now, I mentioned in a previous class that you might want to change your workspace. Personally, Essentials Classic is really nice. You might also find Advanced to be a little bit nice. Personally, I like working in an advanced space. I think the default, if I'm not mistaken, is Essentials Classic. Is that what everyone's kind of popped up as? It might either be Essentials Classic or it might pop up as Book. Some people get slightly different things there. If you ask me, Advanced is going to give you more of the options that you might be looking to use, okay? Today we're going to go over, oh, would you look at that? Everything is gone. InDesign has a really bad habit of giving me the beach ball for whatever reason. It's really frustrating. Get used to it. This is the industry you chose to be. I'm actually just gonna quit and we're gonna reopen because for whatever reason, InDesign wants to be cranky today. Yes.
So I use Affinity Publisher a lot, and they're like similar.
Get out of it.
I wonder, like, how is the industry? Is industry changing? They using different software, or
No, InDesign is still the standard.
okay?
And here's the way you want to look at it: is the economy of things, right? It makes no sense to be paying multiple software licenses. It makes no sense paying or even using a free software if you're already paying for a software, right? Get the economy out of the things that you pay for. Sure, right now you all might be students and you're getting Adobe for free, but Adobe is freaking expensive, okay? Adobe's no one's favorite tool. Let's be clear about it. We were all shitting the bed when Adobe almost bought Figma a few years ago, and thank God they didn't. Does anyone know how much that deal was originally worth?
20 million.
No. You're way off.
It was like 80.
It was $100 billion.
Yeah. And then what happened?
So in contracts, this is why it's going to be really important that some of you guys take GIT 550. We go over all of this in that class, but in contracts, when you go to buy a company, you have what's called a breakup fee. And that breakup fee is what happens if any one of those people back out of a deal. Usually a standard breakup fee is 1% of whatever the offer is that's on the table. 1% of $100 billion, do the math, that's $1 billion. That's Dr. Evil money, okay? Why do you think Figma is coming out with all kinds of cool shit now?
Because
They got the money.
Because they got a huge investment within 3 days of Adobe pulling out. That's what the deal was. You get $1 billion within 3 days if we break up this deal. And they had to break up the deal. Not the FCC.
The government said no, right?
FCC?
FCC.
FCC, yeah. The FCC in the US said that they couldn't make the deal happen, but even internationally, they were getting a lot of flack for it. So that said, it's a good question. There are other options out there, but why when we're already investing a bunch of money into Adobe, at least for right now, right?
Do you see a change in the future?
I absolutely foresee a future where Figma kicks Adobe's ass. And I don't know how that's gonna work. The industry is very reliant on Adobe right now, but they are slowly changing. At least for the UX designers. Not so much for print. So for right now, print designers, sorry to say it, you're still stuck with Adobe. All right, all that said, one of the things that I really wanted to take the time to show you guys is, once again, how do we make money in this industry? Efficiency. So let's say that I spent this time building this, I don't know, 8, 10, however many page documents in InDesign, right? And I don't know, we've got some nice looking fonts here, right? What happens when the client comes to me and says, I don't like that font? Are you gonna spend the time going through every single cell block here and changing the font?
No.
You probably would. But there are tips and tricks, one of them being paragraph styles. If I wanted to change the font of, I don't know, let's say all of the titles, somebody give me a font. Any font. Just to endure you. I just changed the headlines on all of these pages with one click. Right? So I want to show you guys how to set up those paragraph styles. I'm going to close this because I'm pretty sure that's why everything is running at the speed of old man Jenkins here. One sec. Why does nothing? Oh, maybe it's because I need to close it. That'd be a good start. Okay. I'm just going to create a new file here. For me, doesn't matter what size, but you guys are going to be creating posters, right? You guys are literally copying a set of posters within the lab that I gave you. So this is sort of a supplemental lecture to what we're doing here. And it's going to be helpful that you guys set up some sort of paragraph styles. You might need to variate from them a little bit, but I'm going to just create a text block that's 2 cells wide. I got to the text tool by hitting what keyboard command? T. It's the same across all Adobe softwares. And then remember how when I was using Illustrator, I think it was Illustrator, I went and like copied a bunch of lorem ipsum from a website. Fun fact, that's actually built into all Adobe softwares. You can just go to type. Oftentimes it's in type. And then down here you have fill with placeholder text. Ta-da! Done. Right? I went to the website before because I only wanted a little bit. Now, something else that you can do, and this is, I sort of alluded to this previously, but I think it's even more important when you're working in something like InDesign because you might want, you are going to have several columns of copy oftentimes. What's the width of a text block that is ideal? How many characters?
Oh, 10.
about 17 to 43, something like that. I think I give maybe close-ish numbers to that in my lecture. Ideally, you want your text box to be able to hold about 17 to 43 characters, give or take. So I'm actually going to have these span 2 columns here. And down here, you've got this little box, right? If I want my text to go from one column to the next without breaking so that I can edit, I'll click on that box and I'll put it over here. It looks like nothing happened. But watch what happens when I come in here and do type fill with placeholder text. Oh, now we've got a whole block of copy. Now if I come in here and I edit a piece, they're connected. Ah, did I just solve a lot of your problems?
Yes, you can do better
Alright.
with that.
What was that?
Android once more.
Yep. So let me Command Z a couple of times here. Oh, it helps if you actually hit Command Z and not Command A. Down here, this little box with a little arrow. I click on that and then put it into the other box that I've already lined up. It's going to connect those boxes. That's all that's happening there.
You
And
can
then
always resize the other box too, right? Based on like very.
you can still resize it. So I'll show you that. I'll go to type, fill with placeholder text, and for some reason that didn't work. Apparently I didn't actually select the box. There we go. So now we're good there. And to your point, if I'm like, you know what, I don't want this to be 3 columns anymore. I actually want it to be 2 columns. Doink, 2 columns, done. Everything's connected. Now I can even come over here and say, hang on, messed up my columns here. There we go, there's that. Maybe I make this one 2 columns also. Maybe I duplicate that, connect those, problem solved.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, so get in the habit of connecting your text boxes, especially when you have a lot of text, right? Because then as you go to make adjustments, it's going to be a lot easier for you to keep everything connected and not worry about what's on what line and how do I move this thing, right? So, lesson number 1, connect your text boxes. Lesson number 2, set up a paragraph style. So over here on the right, if you're in the advanced tab, you should have paragraph styles. If you, for whatever reason, don't have those, come up to Window, Styles, Paragraph Styles. Okay, it'll add it to that little bar on the right. Double tap into your basic paragraph styles, and we've already established that Minion is not the best of fonts. This is Adobe's default font. Okay, so we probably want to go and select something that's a little bit more of a happy font, designery font, okay? I mentioned in my lecture the other day that there's one font in particular that shows up in every piece of printed material ever. What font was that? No.
Garment.
Garamond is one of them, but I'm looking for one in particular. Baskerville. Now, that said, just because you're doing something for print doesn't mean you automatically need to go to Baskerville, but that's what I'm going to do because I like Baskerville and it's fun. Also, who thought that 12 points is like standard? 11 points? 10 points? Guys, 12 points is huge, okay? 12 points is for your old 7th grade teacher, okay? Oftentimes, that is 11 or 12 points is the standard for like academic papers. However, when you are designing documents, let's say you're designing a manual. I used to have to design a bunch of manuals when I was back at Yamaha. In fact, those would be really great examples for me to pull up. Those often went down to like 8-point type. The smallest you can typically go is 6 points. But you're getting into like old people need magnifying glasses at that point space. Now, I would say the standard is usually at about 10 points. Okay, so I'm going to make this 10-point type. Notice how much more we're actually fitting on this page, right? It's also a really good opportunity to start looking at some of the weird things that are happening here. What's going on here? Breaking the type, right? It's breaking up the word. I don't want that to happen. I want people to be able to read the whole word on one line. So I'll actually come down here to hyphenation and I'm going to turn that off. Problem solved. If you ever leave a line of type with hyphenation, I will find you and I will get you and I will get you out of design school. Because I have the authority.
Can you show me again, please?
Yeah. So right here, see how you've got this hyphenation up at the top and down here you've got a little hyphenation. You just, in your paragraph styles, you'll go from basic character styles down here to hyphenation and you'll uncheck the word hyphenate.
Just turn it off.
Where do you find the
Turn
paragraph?
it off for every
So
document.
paragraph styles should be over on your menu, but if they're not, you can go to Window, Styles, and then paragraph styles should be under there. Good?
And then what do you click to get the setting?
To get to the setting, all I do is I go into my paragraph styles here, and I double clicked on basic paragraph. So we went over some of the basic styles, right? We talked a little bit about ligatures. This will, for the most part, automatically find any ligatured characters that exist within your typeset, and it will do its damnedest to try to connect them. It's not always great, right? I think I went over this. Did we talk about double T's? We talked a little about double T's. Guys, if you're out there and you have two capital T's and they are not touching, again, I will get you and I will kick you out of design school. What's another one that should probably be connected?
Small t.
Small t's, potentially. Depends on the style of those t's. Lowercase f's. If you have two f's side by side, those should be connected. Okay? So just keep those things in mind. Those are little things that I pay attention to when I'm reading. Kerning. We talked about this. You don't really have to worry about this too much until you get to headlines. Okay, headlines are where kerning matters. For body copy, you can almost always set this at metric. Okay? That's just using even spacing for the most part to keep all your letters kerned. Now tracking, this is a little bit stylistic, right? I would assess that for my reading speed that I like to read at, this feels a little tight to me. I like my reading to be a little bit more breathy, a little bit slower. And it really depends on the typeface. Okay, some typefaces have a naturally tight leading. A naturally tight tracking. I tend to like to loosen those up a little bit. Other typefaces have naturally loose tracking, and I tend to go in and tighten those up. So for me, on body copy like this, I would probably track it out to 10 or 20. That's just me. Yeah.
Is there like a specific way you see how much tracking you do? Is there like a rule you follow?
Not necessarily. It's a little bit of a personal aesthetic. I mean, we can all look at this and say that's a little bit too tracked out to read comic, right? Versus, I don't know, something in the 50 range down to a 0 range. That's going to be pretty comfortable, right? I think we can all agree that that's starting to get a little too tight, right? So just use your judgment. You use the mood of the article that you're writing in order to design for that. Okay. Now, leading, we all mentioned this a few days ago when we went over this in the lecture. What is the standard height that you typically want to set for your leading if you're trying to create accessible copy? 1.5 times or 150%. Whoops. So what is 1.5 times 10 points? About 15. You can get away with about 130% as well. That's where this 12 point is coming from. That's about 120%. So 13, you're starting to get into good accessibility territory. 15 is ideal. Whoops. See? Okay, so something I just did there. I just hit the escape button. That was just habit. If you hit escape without hitting OK, it is not going to save whatever you did. And I have lost some minutes of work by doing that. So just keep that in mind. If I set that to 150%, it looks a little let out to me. This starts to get a little bit hard to read. So that's where oftentimes if you're working with body copy, 130% is a little bit more comfortable. It's still accessible, but not quite as accessible as 150. So just depends. I'm going to set this to 13. That's about 130%. Okay. All right, we've gone over most of this. You can also come in here and change the case. So if I want everything to be read as all caps, I can do that automatically within here. I can change it to all small caps, which are uppercase letters, but smaller. I can also change it to just be all lowercase. So there's no capital letters in here. There are some specific use cases for this. Sometimes if your style guide recommends that your subheaders are always in uppercase, you might want to set this. But for the most part, you can pretty much keep it normal. All right, I think we went over all of that. You can also set up automatic indents and spacing within your paragraph styles. So let's say that, I don't know, a lot of your APA rule books are going to say that your first line should be indented by, I think it's 1/4 inch. I can do that here. I can come over here, and what is it doing?
It's doing a left indent on the whole entire paragraph.
It's left indenting the entire column, right? That's okay. That's what I want. But then I also want to come down here. Wait a minute. Sorry. Let me come back. I'll get to the left indent in a second. I can just come over here and I can do the first line, and it's going to indent the first line by however much you want to set it. Here it's using points. You can still type in inches if you want to. So if it's 0.25, or you can do centimeters, just make sure to type whatever the measurement is afterwards, and it'll do the conversion for you. Okay. For whatever reason, you can also indent just the last line. I don't know why you would want to do that. You probably don't. I can also adjust the spacing between my paragraphs. So if I come over here to space after, I can say, I want a little bit of space between each of my paragraphs. See what it's doing there? A little helpful. I can also add space before. There are occasions where you might want to differentiate the amount of space before something versus after something, but that usually comes once we add headlines. Tabs, we'll get to that in a second. This helps when you want to create things like dot leaders or even spacing between segments. I'll get to that in a minute. Don't worry about paragraph rules, paragraph borders. You can do all of that in very different ways, although they can become helpful. We talked about hyphenation, justification. If anyone ever does, outside of designing for legal documents, if anyone ever does full justify, where is it? Okay, that's not doing what it should. We'll come back to that. Drop caps. This one's kind of fun. Everyone has read kind of an old book before where you've got the big letter at the beginning of the paragraph. You have to set up a new character style for it, so we'll come back to that. I forgot about that. But you can set up how many lines you want your drop cap to be, and how many characters in you want it to be. So oftentimes you just want one character. I'll come back to that. This one's probably the most important part. Every single person who has ever used InDesign always gets frustrated with creating bullet points. because it's not up at the top like you might expect them to be. So you have to do them within paragraph styles, okay? And I would recommend make a separate style for your bullet points. You'll see why in a second. You can change the character color, so if you want everything in this style to be blue, you can do that. Magenta, you can set custom colors, doesn't matter. I'm gonna leave mine as black. Cool. That's about what you're gonna need in paragraph styles just to set up a basic paragraph. Now, you might want to set up a different paragraph style for things like headlines. So let's say I want to make this line here a headline, okay? Over here, I've got my little plus icon. I'm just going to add a new paragraph style. It hasn't done anything yet because we need to go in and style it, okay? So over here, I'm just going to say H1, headline 1, largest headline, right? And you can see here that it's going to be based on no paragraph style. If you ask me, you can set it up to be reliant on another paragraph style. So for example, if you update your basic style, let's say I just changed the font, it'll update this one as well. And then basically this one is just changing size and things like that. I find this to be completely unuseful. I like to have control over individual styles and not have them interconnected. Don't ask me why they did this. A couple questions, yeah.
Is that only for this file, right?
Only for this file. I think I haven't checked this more recently, but I know that I have been begging, I am in several Adobe forums begging them to make paragraph styles and character styles transferable from one file to the next. And there's no way to do that unless you duplicate the whole file, delete everything, and then rebuild it. And that is the only way to transfer those character styles. Now, that said, that may have changed in the past couple of years. It's been a minute since I've actually worked in InDesign, but back when I was working at Yamaha, that was the way we used to, because we had a style guide and we always needed the same styles. So we would just take an old file, duplicate it, get rid of whatever we were working on, and then build whatever we needed to do and just use those same styles. So that's a little cheat code. I know for the longest time we've been asking them to allow us to make styles a CC library. And as far as I know, I don't think they've done it yet. So you can jump on my Adobe forum and just +1. It's all in better.
Yeah, so I'm still not able to understand what exactly is the point of based on an extent.
Based on what?
Based on an extent.
Like what's written on.
So basically, if I set this to basic paragraph, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to change the size so that you can see the difference. And I'm going to make it bold. And we'll set this to 18. So you can see the difference between that, right? If I come over here to my basic paragraph, well, hang on a second. Let me disconnect. There we go. If I come over here to my basic paragraph, watch what happens to this headline here. I'm gonna, no. It should do this. See how that changed to Helvetica? Okay, now I'm gonna revert it. And then I'm gonna disconnect it from the basic paragraph. And now if I come back here to the basic paragraph and change that to Helvetica, notice that this stays the same. So that's the difference between having them connected and disconnected, is that it will adopt certain styles. Personally, I don't like that, but if you were working in a document where you only had one font, I can see why you might want something like that. But if you ask me, if you have to come back to this doc, you have to start thinking about your documents as living documents, right? Nothing is ever done in this industry. You always come back to it at some time. Whether that's for your portfolio or whether that's because the client came back to you and they want revisions, whatever it might be, you have to think about coming back to this in a year and remembering what you did. And so when you do these weird interconnections, it makes it more difficult just to understand where your state of mind was when you did it. You also have to start thinking about you not being the owner of a file, right? You all are ultimately going to go and work on a team, and there may be several people that need to be able to work within one file. So this is where things like layer naming, setting up your styles, all of this kind of stuff makes it easier for the next person who comes up to it to work on that thing. Guys, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Stop what you're doing and listen to me. I have had people go into interviews and get asked the question, so how do you set up paragraph styles and character styles? And them sit there dumbfounded, like, I don't know what paragraph styles and character styles are. And those people didn't get the job, just because they didn't know what these things are.
Can I?
These things are important to companies because they want, and to people who work on design teams because they want to know that they can pick up your files and be able to use them, right? So, all of that said, these things are important. It's important to the teams that you're ultimately going to go and work with. It's also important for you so that you can work faster. Because now when the client comes to me and they're like, Cameron, I just hate Helvetica. Sure, there can be a larger conversation about that, but when we ultimately decide that we do want to write the entire document in Comic Sans, I can do that in one click, right? Please be better than this. I can't even look at it. There we go. So we've got that set up. Oh wow, I only have light and bold. Okay. Let's go back to Baskerville, shall we? There we go. Let's come back to setting up our H1. So here, I've already got it slightly larger. I'm going to actually remove my indent on this one. Set that to 0. Also going to set that to 0. And I need to come back here and I need to remove my space after. I don't know, space after is good. All right. So we've got a headline in here now, right? And notice now that there's no space after this headline. Why is that? Anyone?
Because you didn't set it.
I didn't set it. I actually removed it. And I did that as a stylistic choice, right? I want it to be a little bit tighter to the headline. There's nothing worse in my mind than having a paragraph that starts and you can't quite tell which, does it belong to the section above or below, right? Gets a little crazy. So setting up these paragraph styles are huge. Let's also say that we wanted to make this a bullet. I mentioned that we might want to set up another paragraph style. To do that, I'll name this bulleted list, right? And then down here, I mentioned that we can come to bullets and numbering. I'm going to set the list type to bullets. And then we also want to address how we want that bullet to align, okay? I'm just going to hit OK, and then I'm going to apply that style to both of these. What's wrong here?
The indentation.
The indentation. Yeah, the indentation is real caca. It's big bad. So we want to fix that.
That's what the left.
And just to show you what I mean, when you have a bullet here and your next line of text starts behind the bullet, again, this is another thing that I would kick you out of design school for. So come down to your indents and spacing. I mentioned that we would come back to the left indent and the first line indent. I'm going to set the first line to 0 so that my bullet aligns with the text. All right, that's what you want. Your bullet should always align with the text. And then from there, There are a few edge cases to that where you may want to indent it, but for the most part, you want your bullet to align with text. I'll set my, I've got my left indent set to 0. I'll set my first line indent. Oh wait, hang on. I always get this backwards. Okay, you want your first line indent to come in probably about to a 1/4 inch. And then you want your left indent. Why is this not working? Hold on, my brain. Can you tell I need a vacation?
Professor Storm raised her hand.
Oh,
Yeah.
Professor Storm, we can't hear you. Hang on a sec. I don't know what happens with the classroom. Okay, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Two things.
Nope, just kidding. Okay.
Now?
Back here. And then I'm gonna do this. Okay, go ahead. Nope, we're not doing that. I don't know what's happening. Okay, try now.
All right, can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me?
This darn classroom.
Yes.
Hang on, let me try to troubleshoot. We do this. And then this. No. Shit.
Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you anymore, but that's okay. I'll just say what I have to say and then you can go back. Okay, so first thing, in order to turn off hyphenation for the rest of your life in InDesign, because that's what you need to do, hate hyphenation, open InDesign and do not have a document open. Only like no documents open, and then change your basic paragraph style, and that will change all of your defaults. So then you don't have to worry about ever having to deal with hyphenation again. And you can like set up whatever defaults you want from there. Second thing, they have a new thing called style packs, and you can create style packs, and those will then move those styles. You can use them in other documents. So they did actually listen to you. They're called style packs.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we're having to do all kinds of jerry-rigged stuff here. So that said, walk me through the undo hyphenation. That way I can show everyone really quick.
Okay. All right. So open up InDesign. Now you're not sharing, your screen's not on. I don't know. You're not sharing the screen right now. So you might want to. Okay. So no document. Now go up to Window.
Sorry, I got to move Zoom. Window,
And then where is it? Type and Tables, I believe it is.
sorry guys, I'll get it back up for you here in a sec.
Lower, there you go. And then paragraph.
And then unclick that.
And then what? Right. So now you see over on the right, you have paragraph styles and you have your basic paragraph. Yes. Now change that. Get rid of your hyphenation. Okay. And now when you open a document, hyphenation will be off.
Okay.
And any style that you set in there will be your new default. So if you want to, like, if you hate Myriad or whatever the default is, you can change it.
Oh, that's so good to know. All right. See, like I said.
Okay. And then you heard what I said about style packs, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we got that. And then what you were doing before with the trying to do the hanging indent or.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's I always get it backwards too, but basically you want to set your left indent first.
Yep.
And then you're gonna back up on the first indent, so it's a negative. I
Okay,
think
cool.
that's right. All right.
Let me get the screen shared again. That way I can show these guys in here because I think that was super, super useful. Okay. Uno momento.
And I can be done. I just felt like I had to share those things.
No, super, super useful. Oh, sweet Jesus. All right. I am so ready to not be in this classroom.
Sorry, you got another half hour. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me, but we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, we might do it this way from now on. Okay, so what Professor Storm was just saying there is, and I apologize, I hit mute over here and mute here, and I muted everything, and you guys couldn't even see what we were doing. So I'm going to do it again without having any files open. So I'm going to start from scratch. You can go to Window, Paragraph Styles, Paragraph Styles, and then because you don't have anything open, apparently this is the secret sauce you need. You can double click into here and you can change what you want your standard to be. So for example, I just changed my standard font family to Baskerville, which I should probably change to Poppins because that's my brand font. I can also update the standard to be 10 point if I want it to be, and the leading to be 13, whatever, all that stuff that I did, you can set that up and that'll become your new standard. That's actually quite useful. Your default standard. So that's actually really cool. I would imagine, let's do a little experiment here. I would imagine that if I set up an H1 here and I did, let's say 14 point, 16 point, I would imagine that would then become part of that standard. So we can go home, new file, create. Oh, would you look at that? That's pretty darn cool.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Professor Storm. You just made me a happy little camper. I'm so happy now. That's pretty cool. And then the other one that Professor Storm was mentioning was when I was flubbing around with, let me go pull up my old document again here. So when I was flubbing around with the paragraph indenting for my bullets over here, let me go back into this, indents and spacing. You should be, I'm just going to zero these out really quick. There we go. So it should be left indent first. There we go. And then you want to back it up. Back it up. There we go. Okay. So now notice something. Hierarchy, I'm going to simplify all of your design elements and principles into 4 things. If you can remember house, German spelling, H-A-U-S, you can remember your design elements and principles. Hierarchy, alignment, unity, and space. Every single time you create something, ask yourself, is there hierarchy? Is there alignment? Is there unity? Is there space? And if the answer to all of those questions is yes, by gosh, you're halfway there. Okay. So here we now have alignment in 2 spots. My text for my bullets is aligned, and then so are my bullets over here. My bullets are aligned with the copy. Yeah. There are different standards for bullets, so it sort of depends on your style guide. But to sort of show you an example of what you're mentioning there, where you kind of split the gap a little bit, you can definitely do that. And down here, you would just, see, always get it backwards. Here you can just cut this value in half. So I want to say it's like something like that, right? So if you ask me, I'm not a huge fan of it this way just because it feels like the bullets aren't aligned to anything. I'm a big alignment person. I do think this is a little bit more common to what you'll see, but I don't know. I'm old and I get to decide what I like now. So that's one way that you can do it. But also notice now that it looks like my bullet is kind of running into the other paragraph. I'm going to change that. How might I change that? Pop quiz. Spacing. Of course, spacing, but what kind of spacing? We've got all kinds of spacing. Spacing before and after, specifically the after. But what's it doing here? We can change this if we want to. Okay. So that said, this is where something like space before does come in handy. I'm going to leave this at 0 because I actually don't want to change the spacing to my bullets. I want to change the spacing to my body copy. Okay. So I'm going to come back up here to my paragraph, my basic paragraph, and I'm going to go down to my indents and spacing. I'm actually going to reverse this. I'm going to change space after to space before, and I'm going to split it. That way it's even. So now you're getting a little bit of space before and a little bit of space after. This is ideal. Okay. You want it to be this way so that when you do have something like a bulleted list where you don't want so much spacing, you still have an even split top and bottom. Okay. Any questions so far? I know I've covered a lot. Yeah. Sure. Open it without the document. So you're gonna make me go all the way back. No, I'm kidding. There we go. So this is what Illustrator looks like for anyone on load. And all I did was I went straight to window and then down here to styles and paragraph styles. So I just don't have a document open. Apparently, because that's what anyone would have thought to do, right? Is not have a document open to change their global styles. I swear, half of the things that Adobe does these days, I wish I could just go to Adobe headquarters and drill a hole in someone's kneecap. I'll save the violence for other things. Okay. Your turn, yes. Yeah. So the bullet aligned to the left? What are we aligning to the left? The bullet? Okay. So for that, I'll go into my bulleted list, indents and spacing, and I would just I would make the first line indent negative more. So like that. If you want it perfectly aligned with the start of the body copy, your left indent should be indented however far you want it. And then to align it with the body copy, you'll just want to have a negative amount, an equal amount of negative space. That was a really horrible way to phrase that, but I think it made sense. Yeah. How can you download more fonts? More typefaces, I think you mean. So that's actually a good question. How do we get more typefaces? I would recommend 2 places in particular, especially for you guys because you're students. But I also think that this is becoming increasingly more important as we are working with more shared files. Really quickly, who has $10,000 in their pocket? Right. Okay. Fonts are freaking expensive. Okay. Better yet, who has a couple $1 million in their pocket? Not that buying a font is worth a couple $1 million unless you're like buying several licenses, but a lawsuit for a font can cost several $1 million. You can get sued for using fonts. Let me say that one more time. You can get sued for using fonts that you do not own the licenses to. Okay. So does everyone know what the acronym CYA stands for? Cover your ass. So that said, cover your ass. And I would recommend stop going to DaFont and downloading free fonts. You're going to get yourself in some trouble that way. Also, those fonts are shit. Get out of there. So that said, 2 places you can get fonts for free and really good fonts. fonts.adobe.com. This is probably one of the best resources that you guys have at your disposal. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of fonts in here. Typefaces. I should stop saying fonts. But Adobe called them Adobe fonts, so what the hell, right? You have some Comic Sans bullshit here, in case that's what you're in the mood for, or variants of that. But you have some really nice one, like a very really quick. What art movement might this be? What was it? Modernist. I'm looking for a specific modernist. Technically Art Deco is what this would be. It's a little confused of a font, but it also has a little bit of Art Nouveau in there, which is weird because Art Deco and Art Nouveau shouldn't mix. But this M is really a dead giveaway that it's Art Deco, but because the connection is so high, that's a little bit reminiscent of Art Nouveau. So it's trying to do two things here. Yeah, Batman. If you can look at something and instantly feel like, oh, that belongs in a Batman movie, dead giveaway that it should be Art Deco. So here you can just come up here and click Add Family, and it's automatically going to show up in your Adobe products. If you want to use this font in anything else, whether it is Google Doc or Figma or whatever, I actually learned this semester because I was getting very frustrated and I needed to use a font in something that wasn't, I needed to use an Adobe font in something that wasn't an Adobe software. You have to go to this little icon. It might be different for those of you that are on PCs, but you then have to come down here to Adobe Fonts again and see this little button, Install Family. By the way, this works just fine on Adobe platforms right now without you clicking this button. But if you want to use it on anything else, click here to install for non-Adobe apps. Now I can use it on Figma. This will frustrate the living hell out of you. Yes.
Does that also give you?
It does. Yeah. So if you have an Adobe subscription, you have license to use their fonts. They do change from time to time, but for the most part, they've been pretty good about keeping their library licenses renewed. Squarespace actually just went through a whole font renewal. They're going through a little bit of a bad breakup with Google. Also, they acquired Google domains. So yeah, it's a weird breakup. But that also means that Squarespace is getting rid of a lot of their Google fonts. So that's actually another area that you can go to is fonts.google.com. And you can also download free fonts from here. If you guys are going to be designing for websites, I would really strongly recommend using Google fonts for websites. Adobe fonts are still pretty safe, but not all of them. Google fonts are almost guaranteed that they will show up on any web browser at this point. So something for you to keep in mind if you're going into UX design. Don't get crazy with your font choices, because if you choose some weird ass fonts.com font, it won't show, or better yet, it won't render for most devices unless the user has that font installed. Yeah.
How is the license?
Google fonts are mostly safe. In fact, I think it's safe to say you are completely safe with the Google font at this point. But you can almost always come in here, and I think their licenses are somewhere on here. Oh, I would need to do a little bit more digging, but their licenses are somewhere on here. Ah, yeah, there you go. Thank you. So if you're concerned about the usage for any particular font, double check here. For you guys, it's pretty safe to say that the only time you really need to check these licenses for Adobe fonts or Google fonts is if you're doing work for a company, okay? As a student, you're protected. but as an employee, you're not. And particularly as a freelancer, you're not. Ask me how I know. Yes. Nope. Google Fonts are free. Yeah. But also remember that if a product is free, you might be the product.
Yeah, but I was thinking about some typefaces
Mhm.
from, I think they have cloud icon. It was showing that it was downloading, but I couldn't see the info.
Because you're not actually downloading. It's already there. It's ready to use in InDesign. But if you're trying to use it elsewhere, which fonts are you looking for? Poppins? That's a Google font. So you need to go to Google Fonts and download it. So here, if I'm looking for Poppins, I can get font, download all 6, and then if you're on a Mac, you will have something called your font book. You might need to type it in order for it to pull up. I have mine docked because I use it all the time. And then once you have that font book open, you can click all of these and drag them into the font book. I'm not going to do it on mine because I already have Poppins installed, but that's how you would add a new font to your library. Okay. So you have to, if you're using a Google font, you download it, add it to your font library. There are other ways to acquire some pretty inexpensive typefaces. Rest in peace. We used to have something called creative mornings. I forget what it's called. But we used to have a really cool spot that they would do like a monthly font bundle. And that was really nice because you could get like 40 fonts for $10. It was super cool. So I acquired a bunch of fonts that way. But then Envato Elements bought them. And I don't think they do the font bundles anymore, but Envato Elements is a great area to go and purchase fonts if you're looking for somewhat affordable fonts. But even still, those tend to be like several $100s usually. Yeah. You can buy the subscription, but I don't think that includes fonts. It does? Okay, cool. So apparently Envato Elements subscription, which is pricey still. Apparently that includes fonts. Guys, stop going to fonts.com. Stop going to fonts.com. You all want to get paid for your work, right? Okay, well then stop stealing other people's work. Okay? Because that's what you're doing. A designer had to sit there and design that font. And they want to get paid for it just as much as you did. Those are pirated fonts, is what they're called. All right. I belabored a little bit over paragraph styles. There is just one more thing that I want to show you about that, and then I'll turn it over. Once you have paragraph styles set, I want you to see what happens when it's like, oh man, I just want I want to get rid of this runt. Does everyone know what a runt is? Bad break? No? Okay. See this one word at the bottom of a paragraph here? What's the problem with that? It's a waste of space. That's it. It's a waste of space. If you have a document that you need, think about your resumes. You gotta fit a lot of information on one resume, right? And by golly, if I can fit my 12 years of experience and all the shit I do on one page of a resume, you can too. Chances are you just need to go through and get rid of these runts. Runts is a little bit of a bad word these days. So we've also adopted the phrase bad break. So that said, you might want to come in here and adjust now, there's two ways you can go. You can add more words or you can take words away, right? It's almost always better to take words away when you're dealing with a runt. It's because really all that's happening is you got to reword this just a little bit so that you can get one word back along. Ideally, you don't want to have to adjust the leading or I'm sorry, the tracking for each individual paragraph. That gets a little annoying, but that's a way that you could do it. See how I did that there? Just adjust the tracking a little bit so that it moves up, but also look at what happens over here. See my basic paragraph now has a plus on it? That's basically saying, whoa, whoa, you broke the paragraph style. That's what that means. So I'm actually going to return it. I'm going to clear the overrides so that it's back to what it should be. Now what I can do is I can come into my character styles and I can, let's say I want this section to be bold. Just that section. I can do that. Come into my basic character forms, basic character formats, and change the font style to bold.
Change.
So if I heard you correctly, you're basically asking if I just do this.
Yeah.
Yep, paragraph style broken. You're going to thank me for this because watch. If I have multiple words that I want bolded, let me reset that. Here I'm applying it to a whole paragraph, right? I don't necessarily need to do that. If I just have an individual word, like I want this one bolded, I can select it, bold. Select this, bold. That's a lot easier than going all the way up to the top and hitting bold, right? And then also if you're working with your client and they're like, I really like the bold, but I don't want it that. Clients get picky about all kinds of shit. Let me do a couple of these really quick. Or actually, better yet, here's a better use case. What the hell? Why did it? Oh, no, that was correct. So you can see the bold section and the client's like, I like it, but I want the bold sections to stick out a little bit more. All right, Mrs. Client. Sticky outy enough for you yet? And I did that with one click, right? So these are just some of the things. Yeah, it seems like you're taking a bunch of time setting up these paragraph styles, but once you go through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds of revisions, this is all done and you can do that in 2 seconds, right? So start thinking about setting up paragraph styles and character styles. Yeah.
When you did do change and it broke the paragraph style, if you continue to make edits to the paragraph style, what?
So
Does it just not make edits anymore? Or
no, it'll still make your edits and it'll keep your edits. So let's just say that I make this semi-bold and maybe I change this to Helvetica. And maybe I'm just putzing around at this point. Maybe I reduce this font size font size a little bit. I've made several changes there. And then when someone else comes and picks up this file, right now you don't see the plus until I actually click on that section, right? But then someone else comes by and they pick up this document and they're like, oh, great, I want to, I'm going to apply my basic paragraph style here. And hang on, what's going on here? Oh, all right, let me clear that. It's going to get rid of all the work you did. Versus this guy down here, there's nothing to clear. It's going to stay the same, right? So you have to start thinking like other people when you're designing these documents because someone else is going to pick it up. Yeah.
each one like paragraph style you make.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so if you ask me, when I'm setting up my H1s, it's always going to depend on your style guide. Really quickly, does everyone know what a style guide is? Anyone not familiar with what a style guide is? Okay, good. So it's going to depend on your style guide. To give you all a little bit of an example here, let me pull up one of my style guides that I'm working on. And this is frankly a bad example because it's not as inclusive as I would like for it to be, but you're always working on something, right? So within this style guide here, oh, sweet Jesus. It's time to restart my computer. Several pages in. Okay, so within your style guide, you're going to have something like this. And this just gives you, by and large, the sizes and styles for your typography. And if your style guide is really good, you might even get something like this, right? Where it gives you an example of your hierarchy. If I set all of this up as basically what Professor Storm just showed us, which you bet your tushy what I'm going to do after this class, you can have all of this prepared. Now, obviously, my headlines here are pretty consistently bolder than my body copy, right? Despite it being, actually, those are different fonts, but that and that, those are about the same boldness. So I can just set that. But if I had, for instance, anything in here that had a bit of bold in it within my small body copy, I would set that up as a character style. Personally, if you ask me, a good reason to set up a character style is if you have a change in font, not change in typeface, change in font, so bold, italic, light, things like that. Color change. If you have a very specific use case for something, that's really where the paragraph styles, where the character styles come in. Otherwise, set it up as a paragraph style. And you can have an infinite number of paragraph styles. Obviously, you want it to be somewhat condensed because after you get to too much, let me go see if I can find one. Once you get to too many, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. Box, personal, Cameron, old jobs, Yamaha. Let's go look at Nikon here. Oh, shit. Do I not have it in there? Tracer. I might not have these working files. Maybe in one of these. All right. I don't know that these are going to have you're catching me off guard here. I don't know that this is actually going to have paragraph style set up. And this is bad. This is corporate design work. Everything's broken. Yay. So let's see. Yeah. Mhm.
One side and then you get the web one.
Right. Over here?
Previous page.
Previous page? This one? Oh, over here? Yeah, so that just means that I haven't designed the web yet. So I have X's put there until I've actually designed it so that I can then go back and input them. Because remember, for print, you can get away with 8 to 10 points. On web, you can't. Certainly not 6 points, right? So when I go to the web, I would imagine that this bottom small body copy and legalese, that's probably going to get bumped up to about, I might be able to get away with 8 points, but probably 10. And then this one might get bumped up to 12, and then 16, and then 16.
Follow the same.
Not necessarily. It might be a little bit different, but for me, with my body copy, I tend to work in half eighths, so rule of fours, really. So here I might start at 10, which is outside of the rule of fours, and then I'll go to 12, which fits, and then I might go to 16, 20, 24, and then I might catch on to the rule of eighths. That's not ideal. Ideally, it would just be nice and clean, 16, 24, 32, however it works.
The column right next to this, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's corresponding to the size, the point that you selected, like for print is 12 points.
Correct.
And then that's what you see on the right side.
Yep.
Then if you change the size for the web, the 16, for example.
It would look different. So what I would need to do is I would need to then create 2 versions, right? So everything's a work in progress. That's where it's like even your style guides are living documents, right? You don't always just set a style and then move on. You have to come back to these things as you work through them and revise them a little bit. So coming back over here, let's see how good of a designer I was. Okay, I do have some paragraph styles. Would you look at me? Even within here, and this is not like a fancy document. I think it's maybe single page, 2 pages, but I mean, it's all there. I set them up. I was looking for some of these catalogs because, and I don't know what kind of cotton-headed ninny muggins sort of day I was having, but these have a lot of styles, and it doesn't look like it, but you've got a style for the bullet. You have character styles for like the bolding here. You've got styles for these little apostrophes, those stupid fucking apostrophes. I hated them because they're not, they are, and there's a difference between an apostrophe and an inch mark. That gets a little detailed. I had styles set up for my runts, all kinds of stuff. So it can get pretty complex, but some of them are character styles, some of them are paragraph styles. But unfortunately, I don't have those.
You have character styles in that?
This one over here, I'm sure I do. Yeah. So for whatever, oh, I have a character style set up for trademark, copyright, and registration marks. Any guesses why I have a style set up for those? All they need to be is superscript. So I set it up so that all I had to do, yeah, see, all I've done is set it to superscript, but watch what happens if I undo that. And might not be immediate. Oh, right here. See how big that thing looks? I'm going to set it back now. Much better, right? It's those little attention to details that it makes a ton of difference. So yes, I have paragraph styles and character styles set up. And I'm picking this up 10 years into my career later, and I still know what I did because I spent the time to set it up this way, right? All right. Any questions before we send off?
I do for the last.
Yeah, what do you got?
So I picked one of the posters.
Which one did you pick? It's okay. I don't, you're good. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah.
And I find
Get close. You're not going to be able to find the exact font. Get close.
Yeah.
You can almost always default, and it does depend a little bit on the poster, but for most of them that are sans serif, you can almost always default to Helvetica or New House Grotesque or Adkins Grotesque, something like that. You're going to get pretty close. Try to pay attention to what type of font it is. Is it sans serif? Is it humanist? Is it grotesque? Is it neo-grotesque? Is it extended? Is it condensed? Pay attention to those things. That's what I care about more than anything. Good.
So I want to know, is it possible that, let's say in certain fonts, he said he can't.
Sure.
Can I use Illustrator Pen to create that?
You know that you would be there for a very, now if it's a headline, knock yourself out. Some of those headlines you might not be able to find. There are some custom connections in some of those, but if it's body copy, just go find yourself a damn font and put it in there. Save yourself the time.
No, but I meant, like, let's say this one specifically.
Yeah, if you can't find, so that's a good example of one of those like very custom fonts. I would just, yeah, take some time with the pen tool. It's mostly straight lines.
So I can transfer any lines like from straight.
Oh yeah, let me show you that really quick. So you guys notice that in this one, I had images, right? You can actually take vector illustrations and you can place them. Let's say that I wanted to replace this with a logo, like a different logo. We'll do mine just for the hell of it. Command D will allow you to place. Don't ask me why. I didn't make the rules. Command D. You can also go to File, Place right here. Okay. Command D is a lot easier. So just do that, right? And then you can go and you can find even whether it's so I mentioned that InDesign is a publishing tool, right? What's the name of this class really quick? well, okay. Cross-media design, right? It is about taking multiple things and putting them together, right? This is where the cross-media part starts to click, okay? One sec. So if I want to take a file from Illustrator and put that in here, brand, logos, that's an Illustrator file. I'm going to hit enter. And it's in there, but it's hard to see. Now, let me go find a better option. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now you can see the logo in there, right? That's just a PNG. You can still do it with an AI file. You can do it with a PSD, whatever. Now, something really important about scaling images in InDesign, it doesn't work. You have to know how to scale the image. For you guys, until you figure out what the keyboard commands are, I would recommend, hang on, let me make sure. It's been a minute. And I know the keyboard commands, so I can just do it pretty quick. Fitting. Yeah, okay. Get familiar with what each of these does. Okay, so all I did to get there was I right-clicked on the image and I went to fitting. And I would say you guys are probably almost always going to need either fill frame proportionally or fit content proportionally. The keyboard commands, if you want to know what those are off to the edge here, okay? It's several combination of keys, so I don't want to confuse you guys, okay? So you can do that. It's not quite that simple, no. So just get familiar with how to scale the image. You can hold on. Nope. There is a combination in here somewhere. So if you hold Command and Shift, then you can scale it proportionally. But sometimes that's not always something that you want to do. Yeah.
So I want to increase you.
If so, yes, it's not exactly a layer, it's more of like an element. So, but yes, I mean, you could make it a separate layer, but it probably doesn't work the way that you think it does. So for example, both of these document, well, actually all three of these, 4, 5, 6, all 6 of these are actually all in one layer. I haven't separated the layers at all. But once you open the layer, there's several elements within the layer. So it's getting a little bit more complex. A little different than Illustrator. I mean, although you can treat them the same. If you want to put your images on a separate image layer, you can totally do that. If you want to control the opacity, you would select the image and then, good question, effects, set the opacity there. Although that you may not want opacity, you might want to create an overlay, something like that. Opacity is rarely the right choice.
I just want to make sure that
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. Then yeah, you might want opacity. You're trying to lower the opacity so that you can see what you're placing. Okay. Yeah. What I would recommend is instead of doing that, place it in full opacity, or you could reduce the opacity a little bit, but then work in red as you're overlaying, because then you can really see when something's off. And then just at the end, you'll have paragraph style set up so you can very easily change it. Cool. Any other questions? InDesign is tricky, guys. It's tricky. I can't stress that enough. Just get in. Here's the thing. We've talked a little bit about the difference between an artist and a designer, right? Designers are more adjacent to engineers, okay? And you all have to get the mindset to start thinking like an engineer. And what I mean by that is engineers don't just sit like, oh, I can't figure it out. What do I do? They go and they tinker with it. right? They play around with it until they figure it out. Now, that is the only time you'll ever hear me say the words play around with it, because we get to the end of the class and I start yelling at all of you guys for saying the words playing around with it, because we don't. We make strategic decisions. But if we're trying to figure out a software for the first time, then you can play around with it. Okay. The reason I get persnickety about that is we already have a lot of trouble in this industry trying to proclaim our worth to stakeholders. And when we just say we're playing around with it, well, my 2-year-old can play around with things, right? So gotta make yourself valuable in the workplace. All right. Any other questions? Have a wonderful fall break. We'll see you guys when we get back.